Chris. Hey everyone. Folks who don't know me, my name's Josh Roll. I'm a research coordinator with ODOT's research unit. We are in that part of the year where we are soliciting research problem statements or research concepts from everyone. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then to kind of showcase the research unit's recent work, talk about a couple projects that are under contract, about to get underway, some stuff that just finished up. And then for one of the projects that's just finished up, that was led by Li Ming Wang at PSU, I'm going to turn it over to him to let him talk through some of the details of that work. Hopefully, I know that we've gotten a couple projects that have been of interest to this group, but I always am hoping that we can get greater interest from this group, because travel models, and some of our other forecasting tools, land use models and such, provide really great homes for research findings. You know, we produce research on a variety of topics, so I'll kind of highlight here in a moment. And a lot of times those findings are useful for policy, maybe useful for a handbook or some other kind of guidance book, but they don't often get reused over and over. But for our travel models that we're using on a consistent basis for our long-range plans, or for some of the other applications, the findings that we can develop through research get to be used over and over. So it's a really good value for the work that we can fund. So every year, I try to make it known to this group that we have an open call for research proposals. So we're in that moment now. We have until November 15th, which is exactly a month away, to put together problem statements. The problem statement form's up on the screen here. I don't know how well people can see it, but I'll send a link around so folks can access that form. It's on ODOT Research's webpage. It shouldn't take you more than an hour or two to fill out. I know in the past I've collaborated with a few of you, and we've had one person put something together. We pass it around, get it finalized before it gets submitted. But this isn't like a National Science Foundation type grant, so it should be relatively simple for you. And I am available to help. The process for selection includes 2 rounds, one made by staff and a few ODOT, OSU and PSU academics who help make project selections. We typically get around 90 projects that we ultimately, once it gets through both rounds of selection, we fund anywhere from 8 to 9, sometimes 10 projects. And when we do pick a project for funding, the projects typically begin in the fall when the grad students get back, because the professors a lot of times will tap those students to do some of the work. And most projects last anywhere from 1.5 years to 2 years. We have so many amazing data sets coming online with the travel survey. You guys heard from Teresa Conley, who's putting together the CFAC multimodal inventory data. I'm very excited about this year's research development process, because I'm hoping that we'll have lots of great ideas for utilizing those data. Any questions about the open call for proposals? Okay, we can come back to it if there is. To give you a sense of some of the work that we've done recently, this is a list of the projects that were selected last year. The red arrow is highlighting one I think is relevant to this group. SPR 893, the development of methods to produce high-quality household-based VMD data set. This project's aimed at satisfying a need for the ODOT Climate Office, where they need better and more empirical measures of household-based VMT for climate reporting. So we have a goal of reducing household VMT by about 20%. We measure that mostly through the travel model, or through the Vision of L model. It's a good model, but it's not an empirical measure that we can use for calibration or validation of our models. And so the aim here is to synthesize data sets from a variety of sources, that include like the Department of Environmental Quality that tracks this in some urban areas here in the state for air quality, conformity and attainment. Data from the travel survey, data from DMV and data from Orgo, the VMT-based pay-as-you-drive user system, user fee system, and then we'll also be looking at third-party data from some of the big data vendors. So it gives you a sense of the type of work that we're funding. A lot of these related to asphalt and bridge design probably aren't of much interest, but just to give you an understanding of kind of some of the work that we do. Some of the ideas that have been floating around this year so far that might be relevant to you. I'm going to skip over the first one real quick, but I'm going to come back to it. I mentioned the VMT, the household VMT one that's in contracting now. We're contracting with the University of Minnesota. Has done a lot of great work in this realm and had investigators that were well suited to this project. I want to talk about here in a moment some work that we just finished doing pedestrian volume estimation. And then Li Ming is going to talk in a little more detail about some work that we funded that's wrapping up to build a land use module for the Vision Eval model system. But some ideas that we are kicking around at the moment that might be relevant to this group include development of kind of a sketch planning tool for understanding how projects, bike and ped projects, would impact accessibility to jobs and other important amenities like healthcare and schools. This was a project that was put forward last year by our equity office, and it's come back around this year and has gone through some kind of vetting and some additional thinking in terms of how it might utilize existing accessibility calculation tools like the Conveil tool that utilizes the R5 routing engine. And then another one we're excited about is harnessing the CFEC multimodal inventory data and our crash data to develop risk factors that would feed the ODOT active transportation multi-criteria selection tool. It's called the ATNI. But I think this would be relevant to most of the agencies in the room, maybe not the modelers, but I wanted to come back to this first bullet point here that references the emerging GATIS data standard. So the General Active Transportation Infrastructure Specification is something being worked on by the Bureau of Transportation Statistics and Federal Highways, and is meant to be sort of a GTFS for bike and ped network data, a standardized network data standard for bike and ped infrastructure information. We're working right now using some of that CFEC multimodal inventory data, figure out how well it nests with the GATIS data standard. For folks who have worked with uniform data from like GTFS or maybe even the census is probably an example most folks are familiar with, where it doesn't matter what area you're pulling data for, you know what the formula, you know what the format of the data is going to look like, so it's easy to work with. It's consistent across the whole state. So if you build something for one part of the state, you can use it in the other part of the state. That is the hope with this GATIS network data standard, that we can build tools on top of the standard that are easily usable anywhere that the data exists in that standard. OSM, right, is a network data standard that all the big data providers are harnessing to do network analysis, to do routing, to do some of the things that end up becoming products for us available for purchase, some with better quality than others, I realize. But as Teresa talked through the details of the data that they're developing in the CFEC multimodal inventory, I think we should all start thinking about how we build applications off those data to harness them, whether or not that's for modeling and doing a better job forecasting bike and walk trips, or for something like a more sketch level accessibility planning tool. The CFEC data, at least for the 8 MPOs, is going to come in a standardized format, but it's not routable, as we heard Teresa talk about. So that's going to be a key feature that we need to work through for most types of applications that we that aim to fully utilize those data. So I just want to put the existence of the GATA standard on everybody's radar. getting people to think about using those multimodal inventory data for modeling applications and what work is still going to be needed to get there. And maybe that's a research concept that we can all collaborate on. Really quickly, some work our office finished up recently on utilizing some past research on harnessing our push button data for pedestrian counts at signalized intersections, utilizing some of the work that was done previously where we had researchers take our push button actuation data, interface that with actual counts using video to develop a factoring model. We're now applying that model to all of ODOT's intersections, the signalized intersections, excuse me. And all that data is now streaming into PSU's bike ped data portal. So there's about 1,000 traffic signals across the state that are taking the push buttons, factoring them to derive pedestrian estimates. We're taking those data as a part of a research project on pedestrian safety, putting those together with some short duration counts collected through video, putting them together with other data on access, proximity to different features, to measures of sociodemographics from census, other probe-based data from like Strava, and using some machine learning processes to then estimate traffic for pedestrians across all of our urban areas here in Oregon. Those are being harnessed for use in safety performance functions or crash risk models for pedestrians. And we're also using these data to help with some the way our contracts are structured for ADA ramps. So previously, we have contractors who go out and demolish lots and lots of street corners so that they can install ADA ramps. And then they leave those street corners unconstructed for months at a time in some cases. And even though we tell them they can't do that without penalizing them for time above and beyond what they said they would be needing to construct those corners, they just leave them unconstructed, and it disrupts downtowns and disrupts pedestrian traffic. So a few years ago, we did work in Region 5 to estimate pedestrian volumes and use those as a way to build in what are called liquidated damages in our contracts. And so that work was done a few years ago. Now we're doing this statewide now that we have this capability of estimating pedestrian volumes across the state. So a few things that the research office has been working on. Hopefully some thoughts are put in your mind about some concepts that you'd like to submit for funding this year. You have about a month. Please reach out and talk to me or one of my colleagues so we can help get a proposal put together. I'm going to shift it over to Li Ming to talk about another project that our unit funded and that he's wrapping up. Go ahead, Li Ming.
Okay.